Yes, it's absolutely changed me. The biggest way for me is actually discovering more about myself through
Mm,
being a parent. So
right.
these kids are mine, and I can
Yeah.
see it through their actions. And so it's like I have moments where I'll be mid conversation with my kids or mid argument, whatever it is, and then have to
Yep.
stop myself, and I'll look at Tiffany and say, "I'm sorry," and then she'll ask about what, and I'll tell her, whatever premonition I just had. Like I will think of things in real time that me and Tiffany have struggled with for years,
Hmm.
because of a hang up I had or an issue that I had that I could never, get a grasp of. And
Hmm.
through being a dad and raising other neurodivergent kids, I
Yeah.
can see those same behaviors, and because I can live it, I can understand it, and live it, from a third party perspective. And so I think they have helped me become a much more rounded adult, just through being able to parent them. I've definitely become more patient since
Hmm.
being stay at home with them.
What happens when the version of success you were chasing no longer fits the life you're living? Today, I sit down with my good friend Andrew Merchant. Andrew's lived through several distinct chapters, growing up in rural Alabama, choosing service early, building a marriage that started young and endured real pressure, and eventually stepped into a role that challenged every assumption he had about strength, identity, and worth. What makes Andrew's story compelling is not the list of roles he's had, but the decisions he's made when those roles came into conflict. Again and again, he chose presence over prestige, long term stability over short term validation, and responsibility over recognition. Those choices came with trade offs, and we talk honestly about the costs, the doubt, the internal reckoning that followed. This conversation explores how depression reframes your relationship with productivity, how becoming a stay at home dad reshapes identity in a culture that rarely celebrates it, and how raising neurodivergent children forces a deeper level of patience, listening, and self understanding. If you've ever felt caught between who you were trained to be and who your life is asking you to become, there's a lot here that may feel familiar. If this conversation resonates with you, the best way to support the show is to subscribe wherever you're listening, share this episode with someone who might need it, and leave a review. It helps people find these stories and keeps the conversations going. So, with that, here's my conversation with Andrew Merchant. Let's get it. Welcome to Life Between Titles. I'm your host, Savan, and today I've got my good friend, Andrew Merchant. Andrew, how are you?
Good, good, good.
Fantastic. You look great, my friend. You look great. All right, Andrew, I want to get started with a few simple, easy preference questions. Okay, so choose one of these things, and I'm hoping it'll give the audience a little purview into your brain and how it works. You ready?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Um, which do you prefer, the morning or the evening?
Evening for sure.
Um, Routine or spontaneity?
Both. I need routine, but I thrive off spontaneity, if that makes
Okay.
sense.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that. History or future?
History, 100%.
Why is that? That's interesting.
Because if you know your history, like if you know history, you can, I guess, predict or I guess see patterns and things on why people do the things that they do, and so you can, in a way, kind of predict the future. Because if you know how people are going to react to certain things, or if you know what history has said about certain topics or actions, then you can sort of
Yep.
use it to manipulate how you look at the future.
Yep.
That's the way I've
Yep.
always seen it. That's why I went. That's why I have a history degree. I love history.
Oh,
I think it's very
we,
important.
we, we're going to dive into that a little bit more, my friend. All right. Quiet or noise?
Ooh, controlled noise.
Okay. Just like controlled chaos. I like that. Stay in or go out?
Stay in normally.
Like 80% of the time.
Yeah. Solid
Okay.
80.
I wonder, you know, 20-year-old Andrew, what do you think he would have said?
I'll go out 100%. I was so starved for all the fun,
Yeah.
especially growing up in the middle of nowhere,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah,
yes,
for
most
sure.
definitely.
We we will dive into that as well. So stay tuned. Um, introvert or extrovert?
Introverted extrovert. So it's,
Both at the
yeah,
same time?
I very much, I use my wife to feed off socially. She's much more of a social butterfly, whereas I
Yep.
like to, I guess, stay in until I'm comfortable with somebody, and then they can see the full Andrew.
Yeah. The fool Andrew sort of scares me sometimes. um, all right, my friend, let's dive into some questions here. So, what are some things, let's just say in the last like year, um, what's made you like really laugh? Just this guttural, human, animalistic laugh. What was that?
Anything? I, I don't know. I can't think of
That's
anything
all
right
right.
now.
Uh,
I mean, honestly, it's things that are real that I can relate to.
hmm.
Um, like I love edgy humor. Um,
Yep.
but yeah, anything that I
Yep.
can relate to and things that are directed at me. I love people. I love having fun at my expense and whatnot. But yeah, I guess the cheap humor doesn't do it for me. I like to feel.
Yep. Yep. I feel like a lot of that is missing right now in society where, you've got maybe a little bit thicker skin, and I'm sure if you talk to people that are of the younger generation, they might have a different opinion. But I find a lot of the humor that's directed at me to be funny as well, just because I think I'm a quirky guy. And I've got like really weird things that I like that people typically make fun of. But yeah, I find that shit super funny too.
Yeah, 100%. No. Yeah.
All right, Andrew. So tell me what it was like for you growing up. And I know we can't remember, things when we were like 2 or 3, but talk to me about where you grew up. What are some things you remember?
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess growing up, I always thought my childhood was normal, which I guess the more I've done therapy and whatnot, I realized it was far from it.
Yeah,
So I'm one of 4 children,
yep,
born in '89 in Alabama, Southern Alabama. My parents, I remember getting divorced when I was 6, and I
yep.
remember like when they were telling me about it, I knew what divorce was because I watched Mrs. Doubtfire like 15 times.
I love
So,
that
oh,
movie,
this is
dude.
gonna be all right, it's a Mrs. Doubtfire divorce.
Yeah.
Far from it. So my mother ends up moving to Australia, of all fucking places.
Wow.
I don't know why. Uh, but yeah, so growing up without my mother was very, I guess in retrospect, it was hard emotionally, and
Yep.
relationally because it absolutely affected, I guess, how I received affection, how I received gratitudes and gifts, and then what I did to earn those things. Um,
Yeah.
so
Yep.
that was I guess, a big, what I now know as like a big pivotal moment in my life, or I guess who I am, maybe what made me that. Growing up in Alabama was boring. I grew up next
Hmm.
to a farm.
Okay.
It's called the Lazy M Farm.
Yep.
Uh, on one side, and then on the other two sides, I had cow pasture of my house, and then we had woods. So it was, my nearest neighbor was a half mile away. So I
Hmm.
grew up outside with my siblings. We would play in the woods and play in the cow pastures, just walk wherever we wanted to walk. It was a different time.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was very much a country upbringing, even though I despised living in the country, if that makes sense.
No, it
I've
definitely
always
does.
associated, yeah, I've always associated like Southern culture with people who were unintelligent or ignorant about certain things, and it was always like an active fight for me or a desire to ultimately leave Alabama,
Right.
and leave, that Southern culture and be who I wanted to be.
Right.
Um, yeah, so it's after divorce, my father, we were really poor. I remember
Mm.
we would go and it was like an ice cream, like tractor trailer almost. It was, I remember we would go there and we would like get these like expired and or like dinged boxes of ice cream for mega cheap. It's one of the
Yeah.
earliest memories I have. It was in the, I don't even know where, it was somebody's yard in the middle of nowhere in the, it's like, I don't
Yeah.
know how my parents found this thing.
Right.
Um, but things like that, we made it get by, and we made it. My father made it to where I didn't, I guess, know I was poor.
Yep.
Never felt like I
Yeah.
was, even though I never had a lot.
I think that's one of
Um,
the superpowers of a great parent is, they do the right amount of shielding. Um, like I knew my parents struggled a ton as a kid too, but I never really felt it either, right? And now that we're both parents for the audience, we both have kids of our own. There's a certain amount of resilience and a certain amount of like this. I don't know what kind of superpower we get as we get kids, but to be able to shelter them from a lot of these things is really fucking hard, right? It's really hard to
yeah,
do. And especially to do it well enough where your kids feel safe with you and they feel comfortable and they feel like they're in a place where they can just, you know, go outside and run the pasture or, do whatever you were doing, right? Like with the cows out there. But Andrew, tell me a little bit about. I want to go into being outside, being in the woods, and doing those types of things and playing. Did you have a lot of friends when you were there?
no, no. There was the nearest neighbors were about a half mile away, and they were the same age as my older siblings. So my sister's 5 years older than me, and my brother's 4 years older than
Yep.
me. So that
Yep.
was just enough of an age gap to where I guess I couldn't relate. I was more of the always tagging along kid and the annoying
Yep.
brother, whatnot. So it's I didn't get to participate much. So it was very much I was playing with myself in the woods and
Yep.
whatnot most of the time. It was very much a me alone thing in my head, making forts and building dams and shit. Just
Yeah.
whatever I can do.
Are you the youngest of your brothers and sisters?
I'm number three. I have a sister that's 2 years younger than me.
Okay, so you guys, the two of you, didn't plan the forts that you made or anything like that growing up.
No, my sister was I think when my parents divorced, it was at a much more pivotal time for her. And so she was, I think, much more
Mm,
adversely affected in retrospect or in
hmm.
hindsight. She's also the nicest way to say it is my youngest sister wasn't probably intellectually the same level I was.
Hmm.
And so it always felt like it was a little bit mismatched when we played. Um,
Hmm.
just just never played much.
Um, Tell me a little bit about your dad. It sounds like he was a key figure in your life, and just from you talking about him real quickly here, it sounds like highly respect him as a kid and maybe now. But tell me a little bit about him.
Yeah, honestly, I had like maybe not malice is too strong of a word, but growing up, dad just seemed like a normal person. It wasn't
Hmm.
until I got older and I had kids of my own, I realized how fucking good of a job he did to
Yeah,
protect us.
yeah, touche.
So I, I found out a long time, a while back ago that when my parents were divorcing, me and my younger sister were slated to go with my mom.
Oh
It was going
wow,
to be an even swap. And he ended
wow,
up, he made an agreement with her that he would drive her to the airport in Texas. Um, to drop her off for that international flight, and then the kids would, me and my sister would stay, at home. And so
right?
that knowing that now, it kind of like really fucked me up.
Yeah,
That
I believe it.
I guess I was a a plane ticket. That's what that's the difference for me.
Yeah,
I
that
was
bus
how
ride
cheap
would
I
have been a
was
far
in the
ride.
weather. But no, yeah. So he did that, you know, and he I never went without. He was always there for my competitions and stuff. He couldn't make, you know, in school things because he was working, but
Yeah.
um while he was raising, you know, four children plus he had a wife and a stepdaughter, he tore our my childhood house down by hand and then he
Hmm.
rebuilt it by hand by himself. I mean,
Holy
the kids we
smokes!
helped a little bit, but yeah, my father, the house he lives in right now, he built by himself from
Wow,
scratch.
that's amazing.
So some of the earliest memories I had is helping him, like, you know, demo the house and taking sledgehammers to the brick. And I got the kids, we were just like little helpers. Every weekend we would go. So we'd go to school Monday through Friday, and the
Yep.
weekends we would go to our old house and help him work on him. That was an all day thing. And the kids would clean up and do maintenance, mow the lawn, and he would work. And then we would always have the same snacks beforehand. And it
Yeah.
was probably like, you know, $3 worth of stuff. But to me, it felt like I was eating a king, like a king, you know, I had like
Right.
four little Debbie cakes and a drink, you know, whatnot,
Yeah.
living large.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
That's
yeah,
amazing,
things like
man.
that. And it's just, and then knowing now how poor he was and, you know, the things that he had to go through and then doing it alone. I mean, I had the
Hmm.
kids to myself for 2 days. I'm ready to lose my mind. I couldn't
Oh,
imagine
I understand. I
four
understand that.
kids, you know,
Yeah.
I just, yeah. So he's definitely, he's become like a superhero in my book and I respect the hell out of him.
Yeah.
The only thing that I didn't get from him that he just couldn't provide, and I think it's just because of his makeup, was that like affectionate piece, you know,
Yeah.
um, which is what I've always, growing up, that's what I was missing. That was the one thing,
Yeah.
but everything else, amazing.
Yeah. My dad wasn't affectionate either. I think he's more affectionate now in his older age. But I don't ever remember hugging my dad either, or kissing him, or doing any of those, saying I love you. Very stoic man, and but he provided everything that, like, anything that we asked for. Somehow we got it, even though we grew up poor as well. And I just remember the first time that I hugged him. I think I was like in my 20s, and I was like, this feels sort of weird. Right? And as I'm a parent now, and I don't know about you, but I am maybe overly affectionate with my kids and doing the things that I never saw my dad do, even though I knew that he loved me. Um, it was like one of those things where I just felt like it was missing at times. Did you ever feel like that with your dad, like as you were, in your teens or maybe early 20s?
Yeah, there was a tangible shift, I would say, somewhere around grade school, like midway, where I used to give
Hmm.
like a hug and kiss on the cheek every day before he went to work. And
Mm,
then it was like overnight one day it just kind of just flipped and it became weird. Um,
mm,
and I'm not sure if that was me or him, to be honest with you.
hmm.
But yeah, it was just like ever since that period, it was more of a more stoic. I mean, the the word used perfect. It was as very much how it was. You know,
Yeah.
big hugs became side hugs, and
Yeah.
kisses were eliminated altogether, like kiss on the cheek and whatnot. And so it was and then I love you. When you say I love you to me sometimes, it would feel forced. Like when I would say it to him and he would reply it back, it's almost like
Yeah.
he felt uncomfortable, you know, receiving that.
Yeah.
He probably did. Growing up in the 60s in Alabama, I'm sure that was probably just something he didn't get either.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, yeah, it was definitely pretty much I would say similar to what you had.
Yeah.
Although I hugged him a little bit. Had more hugs than you guys.
um, what'd you want to be as a kid?
I I always want to do something in law enforcement and or the military.
Oh, okay.
I whatever reason that just seemed like the easiest escape for me.
Yep.
the thing that I can
Was
do.
that more of a desired? Was that more of a if I could do anything, that's what I'd want to be, or is that the path of least resistance in your head to get out of there?
No, it was more, yeah, it was more of me like almost resigning myself to like, okay, here's my
Yeah.
life circumstance, here's how smart I am, here's my personality, here's what I can actually do. You
Yeah.
know, I never had that kid dream of I can do anything I want to be. I
Right.
always tried, even from an early age, I was limiting myself in those things. So, but
Yeah.
no, yeah, it was always the military or like police officer. It was one of those two. Ironically enough, I
Um,
did both.
what did you like to do outside of occupations as a kid? What were things that brought you joy?
Playing outside was like just being myself, like being free to do what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Um, I got my first old computer. I
Hmm.
was like 12 or 13 years old, and it was like the old family one. It had maybe
Yeah.
500 megabytes of RAM. You know, it was
Yeah. That was a ton.
it was a machine. But no, and when I got that, you know, I always I guess I learned how to make more out of less with that
Uh-huh.
thing. And so
Uh-huh.
in doing that, I learned a lot about computers, and I still have that passion today. I'm
Yeah.
just figuring things out myself and like troubleshooting things myself, especially when it comes to that. Uh,
Yeah.
I really like that, and it makes me feel kind of cool when people come to me for help
Hmm.
for computer stuff. Um, so yeah, that did. History was always a big one for me. I can
Yeah.
pick up a history book and just read it, and my wife will just fall asleep out of boredom when I talk about certain things that I think are interesting. Like there's a big one about,
Yeah.
you know, guns, germs, and steel and how it
Ooh, what
relates
is that?
to like military history.
Okay.
It's just a book about it, basically like logistics and stuff, and then like how, you know, I was. It's been so long since I read this book, but it was logistics and warfare, and then um like germs, like this how that affected like diseases and whatnot, how that affected
Yeah.
migration and whatnot, and so like eliminating, you know, 80% of the North American population with smallpox, and how that second and third order effects affected, you know, the colonization, things like that.
Yeah.
So I love history, and it
Did
was
you
a big
always love
passion
it,
all
or
along. Yeah,
has
no,
that been something that you liked as a kid and going into school you just like enjoyed studying it?
yes, yeah, I think it just made sense to me, you know, because history doesn't change. History
Yeah.
is right, the way we see things might change perspective wise, but the facts do not change. And I think for me that was nice because it was clean. It was spelled out to me, and I was
Yeah.
good at it because I had just just some semblance of an interest. And so I have vivid memories of like elementary school and middle school where we would do certain, you know, tasks or whatnot. I would finish fast, and then I would just
Hmm.
pick up the history book, and I would read our school history book front to back multiple
Wow.
times throughout the course of the year.
Wow.
And so
Wow.
by the time, you know, we had gotten a certain subject material, I had already memorized it, you know.
Wow.
So
That's
I was
incredible,
that kid.
man. That's incredible. Um, has your view of history changed as you've gotten older?
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Um, like I used to hold a romanticized view of like American history, you know, and things like that.
Hmm.
Where the older I get, the more I can appreciate, I guess, how history is written versus who's telling the story, like based off of who's
Right.
telling the story.
Right.
And so I guess providing that nuance that I guess you don't get when you're younger because you're so headstrong, you know.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, the older I've gotten, the more I've appreciated, I guess, the differences that we have, and then maybe that I haven't gotten all the information on certain topics and whatnot. So I've really made a tangible effort to, I guess, read things from the other point of view.
Yeah.
Um, like growing up, all the history books and stuff that I read, like slavery and, you know, and secession and all that was written from perspectives of the South. and
Hmm.
from this is where I grew up. And so like now I'm reading other things, other side, um, understanding why things happen the way they did. Just yeah, it's definitely provided new insight, I guess, and probably enlightened things that I thought I knew, you know, to be fact.
Andrew, tell me what it was like for you in high school, especially with your dad. Was he still was he still single at the time when you were in high school?
No, my father got married again. I was around third grade. So my parents divorced. I was in first grade, and he got remarried, and I was like around third, I want to say.
Okay.
Um, so by high school, we had already moved into the rebuilt house. Like it was like right at my freshman year of high school. I remember that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
the first year was weird, I guess. So I always knew I was going to be an ROTC in high school. My older
Okay.
siblings were, and they were both successful. Um, the high school I went to, they were actually nationally ranked.
Hmm.
The ROTC unit, they were I want to
Yeah.
say like 14th or so, which is pretty cool.
Wow. Yeah.
Um, and so there was a lot of I guess expected of me. So I used to always get like baby merchant's gonna be the next commander in reference to me.
Right. Right.
And so I kind of I felt that responsibility a little bit. So
Hmm.
I went into ROTC, I guess already knowing everybody because I had been to so many competitions and whatnot. And that ended up
Yeah.
being a very central part of my I guess high school experience was around ROTC. That's where I
Hmm.
met my wife, Tiffany.
Hmm.
I met her my sophomore year, like in the summer between my freshman and sophomore years. We had like a training camp that I had attended the year prior and that
Yeah.
Tiffany had done, my wife. And I remember like we had these like knowledge sheets that we would have to memorize and we would give them like a
Okay.
block a day to memorize and fuck it. Tiffany, like her perfectionist self, like this girl memorized this front and back thing in less than a day. And so we would like I remember like quizzing her that day and just being so impressed that she knew everything because I couldn't do that. Um
Yeah. I
and
couldn't
that
do it
was like
either.
this
That's
it was like
tough.
from that point I was hooked. I had one friend, I would say like one good friend in high school growing up.
Yeah.
Um, and that was pretty much it. I've always been kind of a loner. I never fit in with people. I was always the quirky kid or the too hyper kid or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, and I just stuck with what I knew and what I was comfortable with, which was my girlfriend at the time and my best
Hmm.
friend.
Hmm.
Um, I got in a lot of trouble, pretty much a
Yeah.
troublemaker.
Like doing what?
Uh,
All
remember one
all
time,
types
this
of
is actually in
things.
eighth grade. Like in eighth grade once, I got suspended for setting off a firecracker in class. I still maintain I did not know it was a firecracker. Um, but that's neither here nor there.
Oh
Super glued my
man,
teacher's chair
that's
to the floor once. Which don't do that if anybody ever is thinking about doing it because apparently super glue is acidic and it will eat through tile. Didn't know
yeah.
that, but that was a fun one. Um,
Oh
and then yeah,
man.
certain small things. I told my teacher one time he sucked in high
Yeah.
school, and he got really pissed about that.
Yeah.
And I got demoted in ROTC because
Oh man. That's
well,
rough.
for me, it didn't even seem that bad at the time, I guess. But yeah, I guess looking back, I talked a little bit before I thought about certain things, maybe a little bit too much.
Yeah.
I had no filter growing up whatsoever. I just said whatever I could. I didn't know it at the
R-
time. I was undiagnosed ADHD. Um,
Okay.
Tiffany ended up diagnosing me. I was 30 years old. Um,
Yeah.
so it was looking back. If I'd had
That's a
medication,
long
it'd been a
time.
very much different experience. Say what?
That's a long time between like really feeling like, you had symptoms of ADHD until you actually got diagnosed and got the help for it. I mean, it's like what, like 30 some odd years.
It was 30 years
Um,
exactly. Yeah.
do you feel like maybe that had something to do with you. You said you were very much a loner and you had Tiffany and your best friend. Do you feel like that had anything to do with it, or were there other things that um, maybe caused you to be that loner type, or was it just that you felt more comfortable being in a smaller group of people?
I think it was honestly more my mother and that relationship that affected everything else. And so
I see.
I guess growing up, I guess I learned from early age that love doesn't stick around very often, neither does friendship, and things are more superficial than they might seem. And
Yeah.
so growing up, I always had the mindset of I was waiting for the, other proverbial shoe to drop.
Right.
Um, so it was I it I guess my limit or whatnot for trusting people is very high. But when I trust somebody, I trust them, and I
Right.
am loyal to a fault. Um,
Right.
but it takes a lot for me to, I guess, gain that level of trust with people because of that. And so that was my big issue is everything felt superficial, even though it wasn't per se.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so it was until I felt that I was receiving, I guess, an adequate or appropriate amount of love, of um I can't think of the word I'm trying to find right now, but yeah, so I until I felt it and when I knew. But until that,
Right.
it was just more of a I always kept people at arm's distance. I was afraid to let people in.
Yeah.
Also, I felt like people slowed me down. It's it
Yeah.
especially in a school setting, it's just I always felt like I was one of the smarter kids in the room.
Yeah.
And I thought I was different. I felt different. I thought I was different. And so I just treated myself that way.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely hard when you have different expectations from the people that are around you. And it's sort of that dilemma of, do you slow yourself down or do you hold yourself back in order to fit in with people versus saying fuck it, like I'm going to go and do the things that I know I can do, and
Mhm.
really going after it. And it does leave a lot of people behind. I mean, like, I know you and I have had this conversation throughout the week about, um, there's certain people and there are certain characteristics of people that come into your life, that are there for a reason at that specific time, but maybe 5 years from now, 10 years from now, you start to diverge because your expectations of who you are and who your surroundings are and what your values are have changed. And I personally think that's okay, especially if you're trying to get to whatever goal it is that you want to get to later in life. Andrew, tell me a little bit about what it was like at ROTC
High school or college?
college.
College. It was amazing. That was probably my favorite time period in life up until now.
Wow.
I like to think I'm living my best life now, but yeah, college ROTC was just it was the first time in my life I had earned the right to be self-sufficient, independent, a little bit, as far as college goes. And
Hmm.
um I I love the camaraderie. I remember like my freshman year, I had made another friend with one of my roommates. His name was also
Hmm.
Andrew. He's from Tennessee, and instant friends. I remember we took a trip to his house um one weekend randomly, and he got us into like a bar that was obviously we were 18 years old at the time.
Yeah.
I don't know how this
Right.
dude did this, but he knew the bouncer. We got our stamps, went in, got drunk, had a blast,
Right.
things like that. College, we that was Nick Saban's first year at Alabama. Was '07 when I started college, so it was
Yep.
very much becoming a football school again. We would do tailgates every game weekend. You get wings and have all the RTC people there. Then former cadets were there as well, so you get to network with people.
Hmm.
Um, that experience was really fun. The being out in the woods, like doing what we call them sticks lanes. That's where
Hmm.
you're like squad training exercise, I think it stands for, where you basically learn how to receive orders and I guess evaluate certain orders given to you and how like the best way to apply that tactically, and then how you can disseminate that information effectively. So you learn like how to crawl as an officer, during ROTC,
Yeah.
those baby steps. But it was just so fun. Like looking back, being out in the woods, waking up in the middle like, at 5 a.m., in the middle of nowhere,
Yeah.
and doing these essentially like little mini war games all day. I loved it.
Right.
I loved shooting. I loved the exercise. I loved all of that piece of it. And I couldn't tell you why. Like it was like the grind of it because
Hmm.
all we did, when we were doing this stuff was complain. But looking back though, it's like, damn, that was fun. It was,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
and so yeah, it was
Th-
that first year was like that. And then you progressively did more, every year after that. Um, I almost had I had the opportunity to go to Airborne, which I turned down to
Oh,
get
wow.
married that summer. Um,
Right.
I didn't do that, but I could have. But I
Right.
guess getting married was kind of important too. Yeah. So it all culminates to a big training exercise that we do. It's called LDAC that they did at
Hmm.
Fort Lewis, Washington. I think it's at Fort Knox. They do now nowadays, but it's like a month-long evaluation.
Hmm.
And I did really well at this evaluation. I was second out of my platoon out of like 40. Um, and because of that, I was able to get preferential, I guess, branch selection, active duty guard,
Hmm.
which was like the ultimate goal at the
Okay.
time. And then once I got that, me and mine and Tiffany's marriage started, slipping a little bit from the time away and the military stuff. And so I ended up, after all that work, after putting all that in, I gave up active duty to stay with her,
Hmm.
um,
Hmm.
and just like to go National Guard instead. And that was
Yeah.
like probably one of the biggest. Looking back, it was like probably one of the most pivotal decisions of my life. I didn't know it at the time
Right.
because I came up with that idea and pulled the trigger in the same day. But that affected my career
Yep.
10 years down the road. I would probably still be in the army if I hadn't made that
Yeah.
decision.
Talk to me about that decision-making process. It happened so fast, and I'm very fascinated in um, how people make critical decisions in their lives and the process they go through. What did that look like for you during that time?
Oh gosh, it was. I'm trying to capture that right now. Actually, I'm writing a book about that. Or working on it at least.
Hmm.
About those decisions. But yeah, I've that one in particular. I had noticed us kind of like straying apart, and so Tiffany, for me personally,
Hmm.
was my anchor in life. I used her to base all my emotions and decisions off of, especially when I was dysregulated. I didn't even know what that
Right.
was at the time.
Right.
Um, but she was my great steadying force. And I never had that before, growing up, and so I fought like hell to keep that no matter what. That was the most important thing to me, period. And so when
Right.
I saw how we were with space,
Hmm.
um, and I guess how we were operating and the stresses that we were, I guess, like bringing up in our relationship. And so I want to say it was some sort of fight that day,
Hmm.
and I could just, it was something to do with me being gone again and me being upset that she didn't do something around the house.
Yeah.
And I was in the car next to the bomb, which is the bomb was it's the Bureau of Mines. So it was the building that we called it was the RTC building. And I was sitting out
Okay.
in the car and I was just like, I don't want to do this if it's gonna, end up with me being divorced. And
Right.
I guess it was more of the fear of that, and then like that it really felt like I was making a conscious decision in the moment, of choosing my marriage, like do I want my marriage to last or not, and like
Hmm.
I really like I thought, down to my core that that was going to be like this was the decision.
Hmm.
I could see where the light was headed, and so it was. yeah, I remember I made that decision. I called Tiffany. I told her, hey babe, here's what I want to do. This is why. She's like, okay. And I went inside and I signed the paperwork. Like, it was boom boom.
Right.
And I transferred the scholarship over to it was a GRFD, it's a guarantee reserve forces duty. So basically I was promising to go into guard instead of active duty.
Hmm.
Um and then like a couple weeks after that, um then we had something called it was the Tuscaloosa tornado is what everybody calls it, but it was an EF5 tornado that went through Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
Right.
Um Tore the whole college up, totaled my car.
Wow.
I
Wow.
love that car too. And so because of that, I got activated with the guard, and so I was able to do like a month long. It was a month long, I guess, event or activation. Uh, that ended up being very, I guess, formidable, I guess, for me, or
Hmm.
formative, I should say. For my military career, my life, I was able to experience like an actual disaster and how I responded to it, and an actual like chaotic, you know, I guess, scene. I
Yeah.
really I saw how I performed under pressure in those environments, and that was the first time I was proud of myself.
Hmm.
It was, and it really, I guess, struck home that I made the right decision. I felt like I was making a difference as opposed to just doing a bunch of training all day
Yeah.
with nothing to show for it. Because at the time we weren't really at war anymore. Um, I was in college from '07 to 11, so we were at the drawdown stage for Afghanistan and Iraq.
Hmm.
I was slated to go for like two deployments, and both times they got pulled because of that. So it was like, it was
Hmm.
the first time I could actually make a difference. I did like search and rescue
Yeah.
operations like that first night. Um,
What was that
I remember
like? What did you what does search and rescue look like for the people that don't know?
it was like for us, it was honestly just getting on a big line. Like so,
Hmm.
like, when people like get on range, like when you go like clean up ranges, like everybody gets in a line and you just walk down the range and you pick up brass. And it's honestly the same thing. It's a mile long line of soldiers and we're just looking for bodies.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, I was doing that, that first night, which was, sobering, I guess,
Yeah, for sure.
very much so. Um, so that was that first night. I didn't see anybody dead, thankfully. But that first night we did that. Second night, second day, I snuck out of the headquarters to go back out and do more fun stuff. I ended up doing like checkpoint security and helping like stop looters.
I
It's
love how you characterize it as fun stuff.
well, because the rest of my time encompassed sitting in front of a computer and sending out orders to a bunch of company commanders who hated being receiving disseminated information from a cadet.
Right.
So at the
You're right.
time, I was at this limbo rank where I wasn't technically enlisted, I wasn't technically an officer. Your rank is cadet. And
Yep.
so every time you would say something to like one of the officers or a senior enlisted person, it's like, thanks, cadet. I really appreciate the heads up. It's like every time it was just a big fuck you.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah,
Um,
I understand.
so that
I
part I didn't
understand.
enjoy so much.
Right.
But yeah, the getting out and doing like the real army stuff, but I actually feel like you're actually doing something instead of just training over and over. That was fun for me. Even though it
Right.
all amounted to just standing or walking in a line or just standing in the same spot all day, it was new. Um, but yeah, so we did that. We would hand out, the the um, the headquarters I was stationed at also served as a headquarters like for food and whatnot and aid to be brought
Hmm.
into and distributed. So being able to do that, hand out food and
Yep.
MREs and cases of water and all the bang you could ever want to drink in your life.
That's a
Um,
lot of bangs.
it's a lot of it. So yeah, all that. It was a very rewarding period, even though I lost my car.
Yeah, that's such a crazy experience,
Resolution of it?
and to be able to help people during that time just must have felt so fulfilling. I've never done anything close to that, and I would imagine Um, after that period of time and going back to quote unquote the real world, like what was that like?
Um, Boring.
Hmm.
It was I was lucky enough to live close enough home where I could commute home every day still after
Okay.
I guess my shift at the headquarters at the armory.
Yep.
But it was 16-hour days. I would get there at like 7 a.m. I would leave, late.
Yep.
Um, and so yeah, it was I loved every second of it. I loved being needed. I loved being able to solve, quick logistical issues and, fixing them. And so doing that and then going back to working at the shoe store I worked at, for my
Mm,
college job,
yeah.
it was very much night and day.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's just, it felt, what's the word? I guess being like, I was being reduced back to a normal, regular person, which
Yeah.
my life pursuit is to not be normal. Whatever that looks
Yeah.
like, I just don't want to be normal doing it. And yeah, I hated it. I fucking hated it. I wish there was another disaster I could be activated for, you know, like a nice hurricane or something.
Right.
But
Well,
no,
there's a
that
bunch that
was
go through there.
that was the only time I ever got activated for the military. Um, if I would have stayed in, there was a bunch more I could have been, got, picked up for. My friend, who's also I was an MP,
Hmm.
so military police platoons or companies, they get activated quite frequently for things like that, just because it's almost like the jack of all trades in the army.
Hmm.
Military police officers, they do a lot more than people realize they do. Um, so it's very much, I could have more opportunity if I would have stayed in. I'm glad I didn't.
Yeah.
I still don't regret that decision at all.
Yeah. What did you do after college? What did life look like for you?
I bounced around a lot. So there was like the first 4 or 5 years. I'm sorry, well, the first few years we had issues finding employment. Because my history is
What
fucking
what what
useless.
time period? What time period is this?
So this is going to be 11 to 15, I want to say, 14 or 15. So my
Uh-huh.
son was born in 14. So yes, 15. So from
Okay.
11 to 15, um, I bounced around a few jobs. I worked at Marion Military Institute for a while as a admissions counselor. Um, it's a military junior college. So think
Hmm.
ROTC, but instead of 4 years being officer, it's 2 years. And then you're an officer. There's more caveats, but that's the gist of it. So I did that for a
Right.
while. Um, just kind of fun. It was also very boring and middle of nowhere. I hated it. Uh, Pieces of it. Did that. Then I went to training in Missouri for BOLIC, which is like your army training to learn how
Yep.
to be a military police officer. That lasted 4 months. And after that, I was a juvenile detention facility guard. I was a guard at a juvenile detention center.
Wow.
I did that
Okay.
for like a year and a half. Um,
How did you
yeah,
get that gig? Or like how did you stumble into that?
it was like I really can't remember. Like it was me and Tiffany were both looking for jobs. We had moved back. We had it was post military training, and we were both just had like kind of shitty jobs, and so we decided to move back home to where
Hmm.
we grew up at, and pursue careers there, our
Hmm.
family, and yeah, it was just open, and I was already an MP, I kind of just fit in with that.
Yeah.
And it was nothing like I expected it was. I mean, I thought it was gonna be like, like the little shows you would see like Maury or something, where there was drill instructors come in and yell at people. Nothing like
Right.
that. I
Yep.
played so much spades. I want to say, like, my
Mm.
day consisted of playing card games, with the kids, and then
Yep.
just being on my phone and the little, control center, and just doing bed checks every 15 minutes. It was very boring, but also I got really good at spades.
I would
So point that
imagine with
out.
that many
Really
hours.
good. Yeah, we just fell into it. And then after that, we moved again. Tiffany got a job as a youth pastor in the middle of nowhere, Alabama. and
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have, there was nothing there. I ended up selling heavy duty truck parts um,
Mm.
for like almost 2 years, which
Wow.
I hate everything there is to do about like the mechanics yet and whatnot. That's not who I am at all, but it's what I did. Um,
Right.
we did
Because
that for a while,
you
and
felt like
then
you had to do that, or was that something that like you just stumbled on and it was an opportunity, or like
it was very much
how did you commit to that?
very much a had to do it thing. It was the first job I could get. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I still had a supplemental income, with the military. So I had that as
Right.
well. So I had that pay. And so, yeah, it was just something I just found and I was able to do it. It was easy. Pay was horrible, but it was me and Tiffany were young, didn't have kids. We didn't care. It was more
Yeah.
just trying to make it by while we figured out what we were doing. Um, and so, yeah, we did that. We stayed there in Demopolis, Alabama for 2 years before moving back home again,
Mm-hmm.
for the last time. And that's when I finally I got on with Ace Hardware. Like I basically I got on with in warehousing, in the warehousing industry, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm.
Um and so I found out I was good at it. It's much like any other logistics, career, whatnot. It's moving things from A to B and knowing why you do things, which
Right.
I'm good at. And so once I saw, I guess, the pay for the next level, like, as far as like supervisors go, and their salaried staff. I started applying to positions all over the country,
Mm.
for supervisor positions, and that's when I got hired on. Eventually, it took like a month or two, and I finally got a job in La Crosse, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And so
Where's
me and
that?
Tiffany,
Where's La Crosse like relative to Wisconsin? Like, is that north or south or?
it's going to be west. It's right on the Mississippi. So Wisconsin is separated by the Mississippi River, Wisconsin, Minnesota.
Okay.
And so I want to say it's I-84. Is it 84? 84 or 94? I can't remember the
Okay.
interstate. There's an interstate that runs right by it. Um, and it's right on the border. It's on the border. And so we live right next to Minnesota. And it was cold, very different growing up in Alabama, going to La Crosse. Within the first month of us moving there, we saw snow, a lot of snow,
Yeah, I believe
including
it.
snow in May, which is should not be happening ever, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But
Right.
um, yeah, that was I guess the first time we felt like adults, and we were able to, when I felt that I was learning how to be a successful adult and actually
Yeah.
doing adult things,
What
being
year was this, Andrew?
responsible. 15. So this would be from 2015 to 2020. So
Okay.
we were there for 5 years. Tiffany got involved with the church again there, and she also finished her master's degree during this
Hmm.
time period.
Andrew, was this the first time that you and Tiffany were away from Alabama when you guys moved to Wisconsin?
Yes, it
Well,
was.
what was that like from a just from a home perspective? What did that feel like for you?
It was it's very different. We compared a lot, I guess. Everything we did, we compared to how it was like in Alabama. So we noticed those differences right away.
Yeah.
Culturally, it was not a shock, but it was just a marked difference. Food was different, way people talked was different, what they did for
Yeah.
fun. And so it was in some ways it felt the exact same as Alabama. And in other ways it felt
Hmm.
like it couldn't be further, from that. So you kind of got a little bit of both worlds. Um, we didn't dislike it, but we also
Hmm.
never fell in love with Wisconsin. It was just almost like a means to an end for us, a means of escape, from
Right.
Alabama, and just to be able to grow together,
Yep.
unburdened from that.
Yeah. Yeah. Nothing like being away from where you grew up to force you to look at your responsibilities and be like, oh shit, I can't bring, my kids over to my parents' house because they're a few states away, right? And so you got to figure that shit out. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, we had the same thing, when Samantha was born, we decided to move to California, where I went to college for a little bit, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. I love California, but it never really felt like home, at least to
Mhm.
me. And there were a lot of times where it'd be like Christmas and people are still wearing shorts and Birkenstocks, and I'm like, this is not Christmas, right? Like this shit should not be happening. But I did like the fact that there's a lot of things as a parent that I had to learn, just being away from your parents who would tell you, hey, like this is what you should do as a dad, or this is how you should be raising your kids. And I thought that was probably like one of the best things, at least like being away from home myself. Um,
Yep, I would agree with
Andrew,
that.
what did you do after Wisconsin?
Um, at Wisconsin, we before we were like looking for an exit plan. Tiffany had gotten her master's, but she was still making less than half what I was making, and so it was
Mm,
mental health is not valued near the same way in the Midwest and in the South as it is, out west.
right,
And pay is not even close to comparable. So we started
right,
looking at a few major cities on the West Coast: Sacramento, Portland, Seattle, um, or the big three.
yeah,
And we were looking for either something through my job or through hers. We ended up an old acquaintance that she knew from high school ended up was a supervisor with a place over here. They had their own. It was a private for. It was a nonprofit company
hmm,
that does mental health work. And Tiffany, that was her in, and she ended up getting like a basically a shoe in position for them, and that was enough to for us to pull the trigger and move out
yep,
west. We
yep,
made a road trip out of it, which was awesome. We drove like all the way to Alabama, dropped the kids off, and then we drove west by ourselves out to Oregon. A lot of fun. That was probably one of my happiest memories was that trip. It was very much a us thing. It felt like the movies kind of trip, like a trip
hmm,
like you would see in the movies.
hmm,
And then yeah,
hmm,
out west, it's when we really discovered ourselves. We I guess really pushed the limits to what we were comfortable with, and
right,
so we slowly started growing away from the church. I
right,
stopped going altogether. Decided I was atheist. We like our friends that we were making were not the same type of people we were hanging out with before. We were more open to other cultures and other
yeah,
ideas, more so than we ever were
yeah,
before.
yeah,
Work, Tiffany bounced around a few different positions for in therapy before she landed where she is now.
hmm,
I started a few. I had a few logistics jobs, so I worked at FedEx for a little bit as an operations manager, and it felt like I was working for the devil. I hated that. Um,
wow,
I didn't, it's the culture going from Ace to that. I wasn't a fan. Um,
right,
and then yeah, I started working at a place doing shipping metal out, recycled metal and whatnot all over the world. And so I was doing
hmm,
import and export for recycled metals. I did that for 3 years as a logistics coordinator, and I ended up losing my job. And by
hmm,
losing, I mean I got fired. Um,
yeah,
I didn't know it at the time, but I had undiagnosed major depressive disorder. Um, it's probably I think looking back, it was more of a burnout thing for me.
yeah,
Um, well, me and Tiffany have always just been go go go, and
yeah,
I had never learned to, I guess, say no to things.
yeah,
I was afraid to, and so it was those things kind of built up, and I just became useless as a parent, as a husband, as a worker. And yeah, I ended up losing my job, which in
were there
retrospect,
things? Andrew, sorry about that. Were there
Oh, go
things
for it.
that you were there things that you saw during that time at this, was it a sheet metal place or a metal shipping place?
It was Snitcher
Um,
steel at the time, so it was it's basically all sorts of metal, non-ferrous and ferrous, anything that you
mhm,
can strip down and sell. They sold it,
mhm.
even cardboard.
Wow. Were there things that you saw during your time there that made you feel like you were in this state of depression, or were there uh, certain events that really just led you to feel like you were um, not in a place where you were being valued? Like, what did that look like?
For me, it felt like, or it looked like, just a constant state of being behind. And it's not like it's not like I can't catch up feeling. It's more of every place I go, there's more that needs to be done that I have failed at. So I wasn't
Right,
seeing the things I had to do in that big mountain. I was more seeing of the people I let down
right,
in every facet of my life, and those things would kind of accumulate for me. Like it's almost like I was banking them, and it became so much of a burden that you kind of just shut down,
yeah,
and you get decision paralysis. Um, there's no energy. I remember I would wake up at 5 a.m. to go to work and get there really early. But I wasn't able to go to sleep at nights until midnight, 1 a.m., sometimes later. And those things just built and built and built. And so it was, I think for me, the biggest thing was imbalance, having
hmm,
that life imbalance where I wasn't giving myself or allowing myself to take breaks. I wasn't allowing myself to not be perfect.
hmm,
Even though I was already far from perfect in my head, I still have the idea of perfection. And so I was always trying to chase that and
yeah,
failing at every opportunity because perfect doesn't exist.
yeah, for sure, for sure. How did you know to get diagnosed?
My wife. So it was Tiffany has been diagnosed with depression a few times. So I've
Hmm.
seen the way she was, but I was never able to I never saw myself like that until I allowed to, I guess, myself be vulnerable to myself. Um, but it was very much an ongoing conversation with Tiffany and um her kind of helping me see the rut I was in. I will say that
Yeah.
the decision to go to therapy and to get medicated, that was all my decision, but that
Hmm.
was born about by or through conversations, with my wife about that, which it's cheating a little bit because she is a therapist. So,
Hey, you know what?
you can spot
I
those
mean,
things a little
use the
easier.
resources you got, right? Like that's a
I'll take it.
resource that you have. Yeah, I'll take it too.
So yeah, that was, I guess, this when I got fired, that was the driving factor for me. I'm like, all right, I've got to make changes.
Hmm.
Um, and that kind of really kickstarted, I guess, my self-discovery phase, figuring out who I am and I guess what I want to be. And
Yeah,
yeah, it sort of feels like I'm at the tail end of that right now and ready to
yeah.
do something else.
What is the what were some of the first things you did after you got fired from that job? Like, how did you sort of like get yourself back on your feet?
Um, at first I tried to drown myself in, I guess, stuff at home.
Hmm.
Um, I would, I, I started like hardcore, running was a big one actually. So that was the
Yeah,
year I ran my first half marathon, or I guess the only one
yeah,
so far. I got really big into fitness. Started running a ton. Um, I started, cooking all the meals and stuff at home and trying to clean up as much as I can. Still not great at that one. Um, but yeah, take as much ownership as I could to take things off the plate for my wife. But in doing so, I found out that I found myself actually able to juggle these things and
Yep.
I allowed myself to slowly take on more. But I also, at the same time, was teaching myself how to say no and ask, for help from Tiffany when I needed it. And
Yeah.
the first few months, I would always apologize when she came home for not having done, X, Y, and Z. And it took me so long to actually believe her when she said I didn't have to do that. I didn't have to justify myself
Hmm.
to her, to anybody.
Yeah.
And so that's probably the hardest lesson I've had to learn was not having to do that. I've always felt like I've had to explain away my, things that weren't
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah. Being a stay-at-home dad right now as well, um, it has definitely been a weird shift in how you see your values and how you see how much value you bring to your family. And there's definitely days where I struggle with that as well, where, I'm
Yeah.
like, did enough things off of the checklist get done? Or like if I'm taking a break, like should I be taking a break? Right. Because like that structure of work and that structure that you get from an employer is gone. And all of a sudden you're left with creating your own structure. But also like the biggest thing is enforcing that structure. And there's nobody else to enforce it except for you. And
Mhm.
that's probably the hardest. That's probably the hardest part of it. And then giving yourself the grace to be able to say, like, today wasn't the greatest day, and I didn't get half the shit I wanted to get done, right? And to be okay with that. And like I still struggle with that sometimes, when I feel like I didn't do enough. But for you during this period, what did like your days typically look like, and how did you sort of get over, making sure that you're giving yourself that grace?
Um, so I would my day started waking up, getting the kids ready for school,
Yeah.
making breakfast for, Tiffany, beforehand, taking the kids to school. After that, I would, take the dog out on like a long walk
Yeah.
or go to the dog park for an hour or so, and then go work out, and then clean a little bit for like an hour or two, 3 hours. And then it's
Yeah.
already time to get the kids from school after that. And then so after that, I'm with the kids. I'm either playing with them, cooking, or cleaning. And then
Hmm.
I always tried to make sure I gave Tiffany a break when she got home. And
Yeah.
so it was I just busied myself with things, and I always tried to make sure that everybody was taken care of. And I used some of those daytime hours in between where I was alone, I guess, for me time, because I knew
Hmm.
that the evening time, even though my wife was going to be home, I also wanted to give her that same kind of break, um,
Yeah.
for her. And so that was, yeah, it took a while to be okay and comfortable with the idea of giving myself time in the middle of the day, as opposed to when, work was all finished. But once I
Hmm.
became okay with that idea, it really, I guess, made things easier to accept, for me. About, like you said, giving myself that grace to take a break and
Yeah.
to not be perfect as far as getting anything done that I wanted to get done in a day. So it's the biggest life lesson I've had to learn is that you're never done with housework. It's you're
Oh
you're
yeah.
you're always in a state you're always in a state of living. And
Yeah.
for whatever
That
reason,
hamster
I
wheel,
just
man.
I vehemently just hate that idea, at its core, that I can't be done
Mm.
with it. But
Yeah.
I've had to I've had to accept it.
Yeah, it's that hamster wheel that just keeps going. It's the gift that keeps on giving, right? Like
All right.
every week, day in and day out, there's something to do. Um, Andrew, I want to talk a little bit more about depression, your depression, and uh, one of the things that society has placed on us, especially in the Western culture, is this idea of being a performant person or being able to perform so that you can have successful, quote unquote, successful outputs, make more money, shareholder value, build a business, whatever that may be. And more times than not, there's so many nuances to how you actually get to that point. when you were going through depression, and I would imagine it's not something that happens overnight, right? Like I would imagine that this is something that has come in some form or another throughout your entire life. But how did you sort of, shift your mental model or shift your approach on what depression looked like now that you've acknowledged it and you're getting treated for it? How did that shift for how you approached your future and, whatever job you took up next? Like what were some of the things you did differently?
Um, it's more, I guess, how I viewed myself. Like for me, depression was
Mm,
when I boil it down to its core issue was not valuing myself.
yeah.
And so I always placed others before myself. I was afraid to, I guess, I was a big people pleaser. I guess I still am to some, degree. Um,
Right.
and so being comfortable, I guess, giving myself time and whatnot, investing time in myself. So like working out now and having that routine of doing
Right.
things. It's for me, it's literally those simple things, giving myself time to do that, giving myself adequate sleep. Um,
Yeah.
just getting a bottle of sleeping pills was one of the biggest game changers for my mental health, which it
Oh yeah.
seems so easy, but I going from 4 to 5 hours of sleep a night to getting, 6 to 8.
Yeah.
Who knew?
I
It
I
actually
I know
helps.
that feeling very well. I know that feeling very, very well. As you know, like I'm not a good sleeper, and it really fucks with you.
So that, and then another big theme for me was rejection sensitivity. So I've always been acutely aware of just small like tonal shifts that people have whenever their mood or something changes. Um, and that's just from general anxiety growing up the way I did. My stepmother was emotionally abusive
Hmm.
and withdrawn, and then I didn't get it from my father. And so it's growing up, I was always, scanning rooms and whatnot just to make
Yeah.
sure I was safe. And so I'd pick up on that. But what that did was it always left me on high alert and normal day-to-day functions. And so at work, that looked like always searching for the next thing to go wrong instead of having the inverse, positive mindset, expecting things that I'm doing to go right. And so
Right.
by approaching everything from that lens of view of negativity, I found that negativity crept in to every corner of my life. I was always looking for the negative
Hmm.
as opposed to the positive.
Hmm.
I did it so much I had to get the thing tattooed on my arm, like a phrase of "Build your dreams, not your nightmares," as a reminder to
I love that.
myself, that
I love that.
to yeah, to basically to to think your own success, for want of a better word. It's to manifest it. Because
Right.
when I found that when I'm living in a sea of negativity, negativity is going to get in my boat. It just happens. It's going to
Yeah.
splash in there. So
Yeah.
it's I I never thought that. I guess I never realized how influential just having a mindset of positivity can be on your life and the
Yeah.
effect it has.
Andrew, what did you pick up another job after you got fired from the metal place?
Just like a small part-time job working at Target unloading a truck, and that was just for some money. And
Yeah.
at the time, we didn't know how we were going to get health insurance. Because Tiffany's job is a much smaller office, and so they didn't offer health insurance at the time. So I
Hmm.
worked at Target for like 8 months, and then ended up getting burnt out just because of the hours, and we didn't need the money. And
Right.
so I ended up quitting again and just being stay at home. So we have a special needs
Yeah.
son that's autistic.
Yeah.
My other son has ADHD. So it's just my house is a zoo sometimes with them. And
Yeah.
when I am well rested, I'm a much better father, which means that they get more
As we
attention.
as we all as we all.
Right. So it was it was more of a, I guess, brought about by a need to be a want to be a better dad. It was just too much. It wasn't worth what I was giving up, and
Right.
it wasn't a career. It's just a job, So I'm spoiled to stay at home now. And my honestly, the best decision I ever made. My youngest,
Yeah.
the autistic son, he's taking off developmentally, from where he was even a year ago. And so it seems like I've invested enough time where I can see like the finish line, I suppose. Where I'll be able to go back to work and actually do stuff and be productive, feel useful again beyond just at my house. But
Yeah.
it was just, I guess, reframing that was really important for me. Like, I guess reframing what I do, not in a lens of like what I've done, like career wise, but what I'm providing for my family. Um, Once I was able to be
Yeah.
comfortable with that idea, I was able to, I think I would like to say, be a successful stay at home dad.
Yeah. I love that. How do you think the boys um have changed how you have uh communicated and responded to and listened to others? I would imagine being a stay-at-home dad is a lot of work. For those that don't know, there's something happening at every minute of every day. But I would imagine that with the two boys, right now, especially as they're a little bit younger, there might be like a little bit more extra than a family with, say, just one kid, right? But even with the
Sure.
special needs on top of that, there's even more than somebody with kids that don't have special needs. Like, how has that changed you and how you have approached like listening and responding to things and just as, from a basic approach personality wise, like has it changed you? And if so, like how has it?
Yes, it's absolutely changed me. The biggest way for me is actually discovering more about myself through
Mm,
being a parent. And so
right.
these kids are mine, and I can
Yeah.
see it through their actions, and so it's like I have moments where I'll be mid conversation with my kids or mid argument, whatever it is, and just have to
Yep.
stop myself and I'll look at Tiffany and say, "I'm sorry," and then she'll ask about what, and I'll tell her, whatever premonition I just had. Like I will think of things in real time that me and Tiffany have struggled with for years,
Hmm.
because of a hang up I had or an issue that I had that I could never, get a grasp of. And
Hmm.
through being a dad and raising other neurodivergent kids, I
Yeah.
can see those same behaviors. And because I can live it, I can understand it,
Yeah.
and live it at, from a third party perspective. And so I think they have helped me become a much more rounded adult, just through being able to parent them. Um, I've definitely become more patient since
Hmm.
being stay at home with them. Um, I am, it shit happens around the house, and so it's being okay with that and not letting it, kill your day. Like for instance, my youngest son he put all of his weight on a shelf the other day and it came down and I
Hmm.
had to rehang it. And then this
Yeah.
morning he took his pull up and for whatever reason decided to throw it down the stairs and it landed right on top of that shelf again and knocked it down.
That
So it's
shelf wasn't meant to be, my friend. It wasn't meant to
like,
be.
it's like, what can you do, At that point, it didn't mean
Yeah.
to do it. So sometimes you can
Yeah.
just laugh. You just
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. No, absolutely.
I'm I'm still very high strung, but I would say that having the boys and being stay at home has definitely allowed me to appreciate, I guess, the why for things, why they happen and why people are acting the way they are, and having, I guess, care for that, and know that even if somebody is not doing, uh, a desired action or whatnot, um, if I can understand and appreciate why they're doing that, then I can at least be okay with it. And so it's been really
Yeah.
fulfilling, I guess.
Andrew, what you've had so many different roles and identities throughout your years, from provider, a soldier, a partner, a parent, a caretaker. If you had to take the characteristics of all of those things, what are some common things or common themes that you think all of them have that describe you now?
Like, honestly, I think it's more of just I just for whatever reason I think I thrive in chaos, like managed chaos.
Yeah,
I I I like to go into situations and make them stable and then extricate myself. Um,
right.
and so I guess I've always felt like I've been thrust into certain situations and I just made the best of them. And then once I
Yeah.
felt like I was at a stable, period, I could move on to something else. Um, monotony kills me to a certain
Mm-hmm.
degree. I
Yeah.
cannot stand it. I am not built for, I think, long-term office work. I, I guess those life experiences has, I guess, shown me that and allowed me to, I guess, to be comfortable with that idea that my idea of what success was, I guess those goalposts have now moved to a
Yep.
degree, and so yeah, I truly I now embrace the jack of all trades, but now a master of none kind of mantra
Yeah.
instead of hating it.
Yeah. Um, you mentioned the goalposts. Your goalpost has moved for success. For the stay-at-home dads out there that are struggling with being a stay-at-home dad, because I think even now, society, it's not the norm, right? Like, you don't hear about stay-at-home dad stories. You don't hear about success that they're having and all these other things. And I've met your kids, and I think a great reflection of how a parent is doing is through their kids and what they're like. And both boys are amazing. Um, if you had to speak to the stay-at-home dads that are out there now, or dads that maybe are in transition and will become a stay-at-home dad, what are some things that you would tell them about what it's like and how to be successful?
Every day is different. It's
Yep.
for me, it's been trying to create consistency in a world of inconsistency. So I mean,
Mm-hmm.
my day is chaos, but it's all managed, and I think that finding happiness in your work is, I guess, paramount to being successful. And so,
Yeah.
finding happiness for me as a stay-at-home dad means I have to first and foremost be happy with myself and the role I'm playing. And so, it took me, I want to say, probably the better part of a quarter of a year to be okay with the idea of me as the man not bringing in, money.
Right. Right.
Um, and
Right.
then whenever we had money issues that popped up for whatever reason, not taking that personally and not saying
Yeah.
if I was only working, this wouldn't be happening. And so
Right.
it's
Right.
being being able to, I guess, contextualize that idea and actually believe it and live it
Mm-hmm.
was everything for me. Because once I was comfortable with the fact that the only difference between my wife being stay at home and me is my gender, and that's
Right.
it, then
Right.
I'm able to, I guess, separate myself from that, I guess, false lie or false truth, whatever, that I am less than as a man for, not being at work while my wife is. And it switched from being ashamed to say that I was stay at home to now I'm fucking proud to say my wife,
Yeah.
is, the sole breadwinner, and that because of what she does and the sacrifices she makes at work, that I can be stay at home. And what
Right.
that bleeds into is my kids hearing me praise my wife, when
Mm-hmm.
even she's not around all the time. And so they
Mm-hmm.
can respect that. They know that they can see me respecting her and then respecting my position as well, as stay at home. And so
Yeah.
I am happy and at peace with the fact that I know my sons are going to grow up not thinking less than somebody, or thinking it's less than of somebody for doing something that's not stereotypical for their gender.
Right.
Um, you know, Mom working, dad staying at home, doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think there's like a big difference between, the stay-at-home dads that are begrudgingly doing it and not enjoying it or feel like they're forced to versus others that genuinely love it. Like I embrace as much as I can being around my kids all the time, to a fault where they're just like, "Are you ever gonna leave?" Right? Like, because I went from like traveling half the year for multiple years to now being here all the time, and their orientation of what the world looks like has also changed, and expectations of you has also changed to a point where I feel like when I do get that next job, I wonder what their expectations will be of me when I'm no longer here all the time, right? And what that looks like. But we'll cross that road when we get there.
That's a fair
Um,
point. I am scared about the same.
yeah, it's hard, man. It's
Yeah.
definitely hard. Andrew, last two questions, my friend. So you talked about success, and I think we used the word like, what does a good life look like? But I wanna ask you, what does a good life look like now where you are with where the kids are and your marriage and being in Portland versus being in Alabama? um what does it look like now compared to what you once believed it should be when you were growing up?
So I would say that growing up, I measured it off of prestige. And so the entire first 25, 30 years of my life, I chased that high of
Mm,
having prestige, being an officer, being a leader in my workplace, to, and then having that same for Tiffany. And then
yeah.
because of that, I can afford X, Y, and Z for my kids. I can afford this daycare. They can go to wherever they want to do, whatever. And
Right.
I guess the older I've gotten, and I don't know if this is circumstance or if this is just experience. I couldn't tell you. I maybe a little bit both. But honestly, to me, happiness now just looks like, are my kids happy? Because
Hmm.
I'm responsible for my own happiness, and so I can control that. And Tiffany's responsible for her happiness. So I do my best as a husband and as a provider to manage that. And so we're at a point in our lives where we're both good. And it's the only thing that matters to me anymore is my children. And I view my success based off of them now. And
Yeah.
if I have nothing else, I want my kids to say that I was a good dad. Like that is
Yeah.
the most important thing to me. Tiffany's mother is a really good litmus test for me because growing up, I hated the woman when I first met her as a
Hmm.
teenager because I always thought that she was just too involved with Tiffany's lives. But I told her this too recently, but the the love that she has for her children and her daughter especially, because I see it, it's I learned how to love my kids from that woman. But I guess the
Mm,
way to love them and I guess the depth of how deep it can go.
right.
And
Right.
I went from, kind of disliking her to I want to be just like that woman. I want to my kids to say that I love them the same way grandma loved mom. And so
Yeah.
Yeah,
What are
it's
what
for
are
me
some what are
success.
what are
Oh,
some things that you think she did throughout the years that has changed your view of who she was as a parent to Tiffany? Like, are there certain events or personality traits that you have grown to love over these last few years?
yeah, it's unconditional love. She has never once faltered in praising her daughter and
Mhm,
supporting her daughter, and by extension myself. Um,
mhm,
any time that we as a family have needed something, she has always been there. I have never got a no from that woman ever when it came to helping the family out. And so it's
mhm,
and then I guess the older I've gotten, the more context I've gotten from Tiffany as far as the sacrifices that she made, growing up with, with her children. So she worked, three jobs at one point,
yeah,
to get by, but she still never missed a school that ever, like even like, spelling bees, the silly participation awards you get for Tiffany's entire life. That woman didn't miss one event.
wow,
And I mean, and I'm not saying that people who do miss things are bad or inherently bad because they're not. People have jobs, people have lives, but the fact that the fact that she put so much emphasis on that and made it work, it just makes me say, I want to be like that. I want to be that type of
yeah,
parent. If
yeah.
I could be half as successful as she was as a parent, then I think my kids will be all right.
All right, Andrew, last question. So, 20 years down the line, when the boys stumble upon our conversation today, what do you hope they get out of what we've talked about in the conversation?
I would hope that they can see or learn that I don't do things because I think I have to do it. I do it because, I want to do it for them. It's for my family. It's the
Yep.
choices that I've made through my life have culminated not out of, for me personally, not out of ambition. Every choice I make in my life is based off my family. That has
Yeah.
held true at every stop of the way. I chose my family when I went to Alabama. I wasn't married to Tiffany at the
Hmm.
time, but I got a full ride to a different college, and I ended up turning it down to stay with Tiffany. And I left the
Hmm.
guard, and then left my career twice.
Hmm.
Um, so it's not being afraid to take risks when it comes to supporting my family. Um,
Hmm.
I'll never apologize for that. I am 100% at peace, and I think that they will grow up knowing that unequivocally I supported them instead of
Hmm.
my own ambitions. So to me, that's
Yeah.
important. That's what's most important to me personally.
Yeah. I mean, the theme of sacrifice and selflessness has resonated so loudly in our conversation. And I've really appreciated you coming on, telling your story, being vulnerable. And I think there's so many people out there that are going through very similar things. So
Mhm.
thanks for coming on the show, Andrew. I wish you well, my friend, and I'll talk to you soon.
Take care, Sam.
All right. See ya.